Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. 60 years ago today, when Dr. Martin Luther King made a speech about a dream he had. It's my hope today, as we transact with people's business, that we judge people by the content of their character. Hope you would join me in prayer. Lord, we thank you this day. We thank you for your love for us. We thank you that before we even rose this morning, your word says that your thoughts about us are like the sands of the sea. Lord, we pray that you give us wisdom and knowledge and strength as we transact the business of the state today, that you keep our troopers and all those around the state and our first responders safe as we're here and every day of the week. Lord, we just love you. Lord, we pray that our actions would make you and your name great in this state. All these things we ask in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen. President Williams will lead us in pledge allegiance. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So.
This very Mr. President, John Flack, welcoming and honoring. President Wright, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask that my fellow members rise with me as I say, United States Army Staff Sergeant Ryan Christian Canals, assigned to the 8th Battalion, 8th Cycle Operations Group, Airborne, died as a result of wounds sustained from his attack at the Hamid Karzai International Airport, where he was supporting non-combatant evacuation operations. August 26, 2021, in Kabul, Afghanistan. I ask for a moment of silence. In his memory, amen.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm asking members would also rise as we acknowledge the fact that in Jacksonville, Florida, gunmen went into a Dollar General store, killed Angela Carr, Gerald Gallen, and Joseph Lagrietti. What some may or may not know is that before he went there, he went to a college, Edward Waters University, one of our African Methodist Episcopal Church schools, and was threatening to do violence there. This act of hate, unwarranted, and I can't help but feel sorrowful for not just the families, but also those African Americans who felt like their life was also in danger because of what he had written, what he had said. We've got to do better. Words, powerful. In Emmanuel Church, in a roof, assassinated a friend of mine, AME pastor, who's also in the state senate there, and he was headed to Tennessee. Not too long ago, flyers were left on an AME church in Columbia, Tennessee, saying the KKK was coming back. Words matter. We've got to do better. Please let us have a moment of silence for those families. Thank you. Amen.
Representative Pearson.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you to Representative Love for remembering the lives of those lost in Jacksonville, Florida, and I believe it serves as a reminder of the responsibility to fight white supremacy in all its ways. The ideology of hatred that is spewed from white supremacists is what led to the death of these three folks in Florida. And unfortunately, we do not act in all the ways that we can as legislators in this body. Jacksonville can easily be Memphis, can easily be Nashville, or any other towns from which we come. So we must honor the lives of the people who have been lost, not by doing things the same, not by following this deadly status quo. Is to do everything that we can to prevent acts of violence like this from occurring in the first place, which includes doing everything we can to prevent weapons from being in the hands of white supremacist and domestic terrorists. Sunday morning in my district, 3 people were shot, 1 young lady was killed. Sunday morning. Gun violence is destroying and disrupting and hurting Tennesseans in our communities every single day. And it is imperative that we do something differently. 2 weeks ago, 8 people were shot downtown in Memphis in my district. This is an epidemic happening in our communities. And to truly honor the lives of the people whose communities are being shattered and whose lives have been lost means that we act in a way that demands a different result. It is to not go with business as usual. And so to the people, the balcony brigade, the mothers and the fathers and the siblings and the relatives who keep showing up, who keep speaking up, who keep building a movement for justice and love, welcome to the people's house, where your snaps are heard, and your songs and your voices demanding change are welcome. Because democracy demands that the people advocate for change and then that the people elected do something differently. So that we stop getting all the news reports about people dying from gun violence. Because our state can be and should be better than this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I have a fellow Marshall County in here, Mr. David Trickle. Would y'all make him feel welcome? That'll be really appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know many of you all have met my husband, Mike, and a lot of y'all have said bless him. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want this to go on the record. 43 years ago, my daddy and my 2 brothers tried to tell Mike how shy and quiet I was. Very much just in the corner and never saying anything. They tried to tell him, but he still said, I do, which will be 42 years tomorrow. And he is down here this week with me, and I never thought I'd get the opportunity to wish him a happy anniversary. So now that I've had the opportunity on the House floor, I want to say happy anniversary to my God-fearing husband, fabulous father, and most of all, grandfather of our three precious grandchildren that he loves dearly and would give his life for. So I just want to say happy anniversary to Mike. And I know his face is all red, so because he doesn't like to teach poetry. But I thank the Lord for sending him to me. So thank you all for letting me share.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're all here to try to deal with this epidemic of violence in our state. We called to do a special session based on public safety. But I want to remind everybody about the 6 people who died from Covenant School. And I'd like for us to say their names and stand up one more time. Catherine Coots, Mike Hill, Cynthia Peake, Evelyn Nickhouse, Haley Scruggs, and William King. These are 6 lives that were taken too soon. And we have hundreds of people, thousands of people that come down here every day in their memory, begging us for these things. And I hope everybody keeps those things in their head as we complete our business today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Only a few of us still remaining in the chamber had an opportunity to serve Governor Don Sullivan. We can please rise and recognize the passing of Governor Sundquist. Certainly think of his wife Martha, their children, and their grandchildren, and his Sundquist. Having we served his congressman and his
Yesterday, as my husband and I were shopped and stood in my kitchen and we listened to the terrible news out of Jacksonville, we were very struck that they mentioned, almost casually, almost in passing, that the killer had mental health issues and that he had been taken in the past for mental health issues. They also mentioned that the Jacksonville killer has a manifesto. And quite frankly, a manifesto isn't anything more than the diary of a madman. I am so proud of the House that we have done the work we've done in this special session on mental health issues. We have much more work to do. But we've done so much work right now on mental health issues, and we will do more. And Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of you and your leadership. I'm proud of our speaker. And I am so glad that we've done as much as we've done on mental health issues. We will do more, and there's so much more to be done. But we can see all around us, mental health is the issue. It is crying out all around our legislatures to address it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your leadership in this special session. And let's just hope and pray that we can pass these bills that we've worked so very, very hard on. Thank you.
Representative Leslie. Representative Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this weekend in Australia, there was an airplane crash with 23 members of the United States Marine Corps on board. 3 of those members have passed, 20 were hospitalized, 8 are still hospitalized. And I would ask that give a moment of silence for those Marines that were involved in that accident and their families, and for those that we lost serving our country. Semper Fi. Thank you.
Lieutenant Howard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor my grandson, Daniel Howell, who is an Army veteran, spent about 18 months in the Middle East. He's now home serving his community as a police officer in the Kansas City area. And 1 year ago, this coming Saturday, he and his wife presented the family with the family's first great-grandson. Happens to be my namesake, and if anybody's interested, I've got a picture of him on my phone. His name is Sutter Daniel. His first word was ball, so I'm sure the Bonds will be recruiting him anytime now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I want to honor the 60th anniversary. August 28th is the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, where hundreds of thousands of Americans gathered in Washington to challenge systemic racism and economic exploitation. I'd like to read some of the words of Congressman John Lewis, who's the youngest speaker at that march. He stated the time will come when we'll not confine our marching to Washington. We'll march to the South, to the heart of Dixie, the way Sherman did. We shall pursue our own scorched policy and burn Jim Crow to the ground, non-violently. We shall fragment the South into 1,000 pieces and put them back together in the image of democracy. We'll make the action of the past few months look petty. And I say to you, wake up, America. I think those words which President Lewis planned to say when he was a young man, but were censored in his speech because some people were uncomfortable with them speak to the moment that we're in. Because the truth be told, white supremacy is not a mental health issue. It is about terrorism. And the shooting that happened in Jacksonville, Florida was not quote-unquote racially motivated. It was racial terrorism. And until we acknowledge that fact, until we act on that fact, it will continue to happen. Jacksonville, Florida, Buffalo, New York, Charleston, South Carolina. How many acts of racial terror will it take for us to see that there is an issue, a crisis, an emergency of white supremacy in this nation that is the greatest threat that we face as a multiracial democracy? And so while those members want to honor mental health, there's people we can't honor today. Their names are Angela Michelle Carr, age 52, killed in Jacksonville, Florida by white supremacists who wrote a swastika on his AR-15. Their names are Noel Joseph A.J. LaGour Jr., age 29, who was terrorized and murdered and killed by a man who wrote a swastika on his AR-15. Their names are Jarrell Deshaun Gallion, 19, who we can't honor because the white supremacists wrote a swastika on our AR-15 and went into a Dollar General and took his life because of racial hatred. Let's be honest about what this is about. This is not mental health. Perhaps the mental health issue is doing nothing when you see tragedy happening. Perhaps the mental health issue is refusing to change the way you act and expecting different results. That is insanity. And so the way we honor them, I'm not going to call for a moment of silence. We've had too much silence in this body. I'm going to call for a moment of action. Let's protect these black lives. Let's protect the lives of 9-year-olds. Let's protect the lives of our people instead of making excuses and deflecting on other issues. Because you are sane enough to know that you want to put a swastika on your gun and write a whole manifesto and punctuate your racial hatred. And we know it's not about mental health. It's about a deeper sickness in America, a deeper morality, a deeper illness that is grown deep in this nation. It's the same hatred that led to Tennesseans being lynched in many of our counties. The same hatred that led black people to build this capital without pay and be abused and mistreated. It's the same hatred that many of us want to ban from being taught. And so it is just so frustrating to see members not even honor those who died, not even respect Black death enough, to call it out for what it is and want to distract us, and they say thank you. When all we're saying is we want our people to live, and that Black lives should matter more than this blind obedience the weapons of war terrorizing our community. So on this march on Washington, I hope that that march comes to Tennessee. I hope that that march comes to Nashville. And I hope that it unsettles us enough to do something. Act as a voice of conscience in this time. To challenge the hatred of white supremacy, the white supremacist terrorism that's been so definitive. And that was present at our Capitol last Monday when the crowd was outside of this building. It's the same strand of white supremacy that we must challenge. We have an obligation to do better for all future generations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Doggett and I would like to welcome some constituents we have here today from the 70th and the 71st District. Y'all please make them feel welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This past Friday night, one of our colleagues was honored at a high school football game. 117 years of high school football at Clarksville High School, and 25 members were inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I wish you would help me recognize Speaker Johnson as one of those people who was inducted into that Hall of Fame.
Representative Johnson Knox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just also rise to honor the moms that are here today, the families of gun violence victims, and not the ones just here today, but the ones who have been coming for years, asking for change and actually asking for action, whether it was Waffle House or the church in Antioch, Covenant, all of these victims all across our state. The shooting at the Unitarian Church in Knoxville, the shooting at Central High School. Want to honor those people as they have come over and over and over and continue to come. But I also want to welcome facts into this room. And the fact is that less than 4% of gun violence is due to mental health.
Representative Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, join me in wishing a very, very happy birthday to someone who thought they were going to get away without telling us that it was their birthday. They typically wouldn't be able to be here, wouldn't be here usually during this time. First, we would wish them a happy birthday, but want to say happy birthday to Representative Justin Jones.
Happy birthday!
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a birthday honoring someone in Laverne County. A couple more birthdays in the previous announcement. Ms. Christine Luckett turns 104 this week. Give a big round of applause.
Anyone else want to honor Representative Sparks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, about 8 years ago, we had a devastating fire of a church, Life of Victory Ministries, Pastor Brendan Bryant. Everything in that church was burned to the ground, but two things survived. What they were? Bibles and the crosses. We're putting together a revived Rutherford. This country needs a revival. It needs a revival. Grace Church in Laverne, Tennessee, September 23rd, 2 to 5. The Honorable John DeBerry is going to be our guest speaker, the advisor to the governor. We all know what happened to John DeBerry. Let's hope it doesn't happen to anyone else. He's going to be speaking. Everyone will be listening. September 23rd, 2 to 5, Laverne, Tennessee, Grace Church. Everyone is welcome. Thanks, Speaker.
Next order, introduction resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The all resolutions properly filed, carried, resolution number 17, in place of the consent calendar for the court standing committee.
Citizen resolutions to congratulate the board of law.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The all city joint resolution congratulating the board on the in place of the consent calendar, resolution number 17.
Objections over. Resolutions lying over.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The all resolutions lying over, referred to the court standing committee.
Objections over. Introduction of bills, Senate bills on first consideration, Senate bills on second consideration, House bills on second consideration, additions and memorials, reports from standing committees, reports from select committees, calendars, restricted to House and consent. Zachary, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The passage of the consent calendar for third and final consideration, keeping with Rule 50.
Gentlemen, this passes consent, County Public Secretary's clerk, any objections will file.
Mr. Speaker, no objections filed.
Anyone seeking consent, on the record. Consent calendar, seek recognition. We're voting. All those members that voted in favor, vote aye when the bell rings, those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, is there any wish to change the vote? Ayes 81 and 86, President vote. Never seen much of the 49 clear, seek out pass adoption, motion to consider table. Next ordinance, clerk. Mr. Speaker, the House has a regular calendar. They're likely to recognize. All right, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Speaker, at the time of recess, the body was ready to consider item 7, page 2, item 7 of Thursday's regular calendar. It was substituted and formed in the Senate bills, or now in Senate Bill 88 by Leader Lambert relative to Tennessee Bureau of Investigation reports on status of human trafficking. Mr. Speaker, on the dashboard, the viewers will go back to Thursday's date. They will be able to see all the materials in dashboard for Thursday.
This is the governor's bill that would require that a report on human trafficking be prepared by the TBI, presented to both the House and Senate Speaker and the governor by December 1st, 2023, and every year thereafter. That is the bill that we're on currently. With that, I renew my motion.
I introduce the motion. Any discussion on the bill? Clerk, call the first reading. House Amendment 1 by Leader Lambert. Leader Lambert, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Withdraw bills.
No objection. Withdraw. Mr. Speaker, no further amendments. Leader Lambert, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, members, let's take direct questions. This is as clear and concise as it can get. We've not done a report like this in about a decade. It is time that we do so. Surely the goodness human trafficking is something we can help and we can combat. And one of the first steps we can do so is to make sure that we have a report indicating exactly the scope of the problem in Tennessee and where we can focus on.
Leader Lambert, introduce the motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objections to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 88, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Is there any votes in your chamber? Clerk, please take the vote. Ayes 86, 1 nay, 3 persons not voting. Senate Bill 88, having received Congress majority by clerk passed by objection, close to reading, table.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know I'm out of order, but I forgot something important. Today was the first day of college for my daughter, Kirsten Parkinson. And I've walked her into her school or classroom every single year from the moment she hit daycare. And today was no different. I walked her onto the University of Memphis campus, gave her a hug, we prayed, and we encouraged. And I just want to say congratulations to my daughter, Kirsten Parkinson, and I know you do well. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, call the bill. Mr. Speaker, that brings us to item 13 from Thursday's calendar. Item 13 House Bill 36 by Chairman Kumar and others relative to mental health services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request that this be rolled to the next available calendar.
House Bill 33 by Chairman White and others relative to bail distributions, item 14. Chairman White, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to move House Bill 7033 to the next available calendar.
Next on calendar. Brings the body back to item 11. Item 11 from 36 calendar. Item 11, House Bill 72, relative to the court system. Mr. Speaker, if I can clarify, we're on item 11, where bills have been rolled to different places. Now, Chairman Russell, relative to the court system. Chair Russell, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 72 on third and final consideration.
Chair Russell, this passes by second. Ms. Clerk, you may file. Mr. Speaker, no one is filed. Chair Russell, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 72 directs the Administrative Office of the Courts to develop a new software system that will provide document management, electronic case filing, electronic payment methods, data reporting, and other things needed to upgrade the case management system that has been in place for the past 20 years. Because of adequate system, issues with getting adequate reporting and keeping files updated. That, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
The Russell renews his motion. Any discussion? Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a couple of questions about this. Representative Russell, here in Davidson County, we've invested a lot of money over the last millions of dollars in having one of the most up-to-date efficient systems to report nightly to the TBI Commission. So, if this bill passes, it's going to push us back 15 years. I called my county clerk here. He was very concerned about this bill. My question to you is, would you consult with any of the other larger counties before you pass this bill that have invested so much into making sure that we have an efficient, fast, and more than adequate system? Because I understand sometimes maybe this particular piece of legislation is very cumbersome for Davidson County. So my question is, I just hope that you know what the outcome or intended or unintended consequences
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And absolutely, I share your concerns, and I double checked that we already appropriated $75 million to fund it. So every county in the state of Tennessee will get this new computer system, including Shelby, Davidson, Knox, and Hamilton County. So I did check on that, and it won't cost any counties.
My question was about cost. I think if they was what I have on. The second is the $75 million. It sounds like a lot when we have 95 counties. How is that going to be distributed equitably? Here in Davidson County, the system and the data that they're dealing with is so large. Even if you get $1 billion, it's still not enough. Who's going to incur that extra cost?
Russell.
So that was figured in this past budget, the $75 million is what it was going to cost, and then every 6 months, the administrative office of the courts has to come back and report how it's going, and if they are getting close to that cost, the legislator would have to decide to give more funding.
So as they're going through the process and run out of money, we're not in session. How does that money be allocated? How does it get paid for? Is it just stop in the middle of the acquisition? How does this work?
Like I said, that would be reported by the administrative office of the courts, but I don't see that happening. We got some pretty good people that run our physical services to do cover these figures, and it was well planned out.
Speaking with my counterpart, he had a lot of reservations about this. And one of them was, if it's implemented, what they're doing now, and the service is free for the legal community, for the energy that they're not already using. This could cause costs to defendant, the attorney, put a strain on the financial using this particular system. So I guess my point is saying is, I know you've probably talked this over, but again, we have a problem here of not really talking to the stakeholders and really understanding the impact of how something's going to happen before we implement something. We do a lot of stuff because we can, not because we should. So I want to ask you to think about this, the impact it's going to have. This was a major issue. We were talking about millions of dollars. The state here, the Days County taxpayers have already paid out to make sure we had a system that robust, reports right into the TBI. And if there's not some kind of compatibility clause or issue there, I think that we should at least consider taking those particular counties that are investing that much money to make sure that there's nothing wrong with this system. Use the TBI, everybody's running, execute running, just invest in those who are investing and do not have that. I think that would be a better deal.
President Russell. And I appreciate that. If you want to bring that back in January, I'll look at that. Thank you.
You agree to roll the bill to January? Is that what I'm hearing?
President Russell. Negative.
President Dixon. I made my case for this, because I wish you would consider at least taking this continuous and have a more robust conversation about this. It's not an easy issue. I want you to think about it, but for those of you that said that the cost of increases, I can't support it. Thank you. That's my colleagues to do so.
President Farmer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sponsor, I appreciate you bringing this piece of legislation. I deal with it on a regular basis. But what this would do is this is an attempt to bring the state in line with the federal government, and federal filings. Go on, file their documents online there, and folks can look and see what's going on with their case, attorneys can look and see what's going on with the case, the court can file documents there. Well, I'm a little confused with regards to the mention of the county court clerk, because it has nothing to do with driver's license renewals. It has to do with judgments, motions of the courts. I think the only clerks that would be interested in this would be state court clerks or maybe a chancery court clerk. But this came from committee, we didn't have any issue with the state courts in regards to the $75 million per year. So this president bringing this system into the 21st century. I know this is a good bill. I know this will help the entire system work better, especially for defendants, especially the people who don't understand what's going on. Help the victims understand the needs, help lead to more transparency. So members, I urge you to support this piece of legislation. And as the last speaker said, Nashville is 15 years ahead of the rest of the state. There's an issue there. Let's help the others come on board and be in line with Davidson County. I don't see how this legislation is going to immediately prepare Davidson County's current ability to operate the way to operate. I just ask the members to support this piece of legislation. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sponsor, what is the status of this bill in the Senate?
I don't know. I'm working over there, so.
I do understand, but this body has had a tradition of holding ourselves accountable to the position of a bill in the Senate. And it's been a question that this supermajority has asked over and over again. And yeah, it's Democrats. And when the bill wasn't moving, it was doing stuff, it was laid on the table, we were not even allowed to take it on. So that's why I'm asking this bill still active in the Senate? And if not, would you be willing to roll it to get the Senate take action on this, roll it to the Hill until the Senate take action on it?
President Russell. So I would like to just send a clear message to the Senate that we're going to pass legislation up here. If they want to keep it up, that's fine. My biggest concern is the TBI is hundreds of thousands of cases behind on entering criminal history for people. And this will help get those cases up to date so people can look in there and find out background checks. That it would be
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Also, thank you, Congressman Warner. Also, think we need to be true to our values and what we say we love to do. And we're going to continue to not allow Democrats' bills to be heard because it's not moving in the Senate. I think the same should be true on the other side of the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any questions? President Parks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What's the fiscal note on this?
President Russell.
So the money that we appropriated was $55 million earlier this year, and it just directs the office of the AOC to go ahead and implement that money.
President Parks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. $75 million would cover rate kids with it.
I'm talking, President Parks.
I'll sit down, Mr. Speaker.
Further questions? President Warner?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to bring this question.
Next question be following objection. Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of House Bill 72, vote aye. Bill raised, those opposed, vote no. As you remember voting, is it your wish to change your vote? Mr. Clerk, please vote.
Aye, 69, 17 nays, 4 present, not voting.
House Bill 72, receives Constitution majority of clerk, pass without objection, vote please to the table.
Speaker, item 15, House Bill 32, by Chairman Williams and others, relevant to period and coverage for mental health services.
President Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 32 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Williams, is passed on second, Mr. Clerk, on first amendment.
House Insurance Committee amendment report.
Chairman Kumar, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment rewrites the bill. Move to adopt.
Chairman Kumar moves adoption of amendment 1, by second, any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of amendment 1 say aye. Aye, all those opposed say no. Ayes have it, adopt. Next,
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill as amended would allow for parity between mental health coverages for inpatient and outpatient care so that they can meet the federal guidelines so it matches what it costs for substance abuse. Currently, as the members know, and we discussed in finance and health and the insurance, that currently there is a shortage of healthcare providers in the mental health space across the state because the reimbursement rates are so low, creating a shortage of those, which means Tennesseans can't get the help that they need because those are so low. This bill would bring about equality as it relates to those reimbursement rates. With that description, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to do my motion.
President Williams, introduced motion, any discussion on this? Zachary, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chairman Williams, thank you for bringing this bill. Members, this may be one of the most important bills we pass during the special session. A couple of weeks ago, Speaker Sexton had some of the major providers around the state come to the Capitol, whether it was Heller Ross McNabb, Covenant, UT Medical, Children's Hospital. They all sat in this conference room saying we have a crisis in funding related to mental health. This is a big step toward rectifying the issue of staffing. Everyone is in a staffing crisis right now, not just the psychiatrists, but with those frontline workers. For most facilities, it's not a capacity issue, it's a personnel issue. So this is an extremely important bill, and specifically for Knox County, our largest mental health institution is struggling. And we desperately need this legislation to pass to help bring in to help shorten the gap. And that goes for another facility in Memphis, but they're like that all across the state. It's an extremely important piece of legislation, critically important to mental health in this state. And I've said this stat before, I'm close with this, is when we had a briefing before the Department of Mental Health a couple of weeks ago, they told us right before the pandemic, 18% of Tennesseans were in mental health crisis. After the pandemic, that number jumped to 30%. We have a significant crisis on our hands, and every one of those providers have told us we have a crisis in funding. So this is a big step. So Speaker, thank you for your leadership. Chairman Williams, thank you for your leadership.
Any further discussion? Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I sat in the meetings with the governor and some of the other members, the member that just spoke, he was in that meeting also. And when this bill came up, and I'm supporting this bill. I appreciate this bill. You know, but we're still ranked 45th out of 50. 45th out of 50 states when it comes to mental health services to our citizens. That's why 1/3 of our citizens are dealing with mental health issues. We are at the bottom of the bottom. We're like the ASD of mental health, the bottom 5%. Because we are not doing everything that we need to do to ensure that people get access to services. There's some bills coming through here, like this is a good bill. There's some other bills coming through here that would, change the rate, or might be in this bill, change the rate for these organizations or institutions to have 15 or more beds. Is that in this bill also? Okay. But, bills like that, but it does not increase one additional Tennessean receiving mental health services. And we have the ability to do that. To increase services for additional Tennesseans. You can't depend on the safety net. You can't even get an appointment hardly through the safety net. That's why we are having 1/3. I want you to think about that. 1 out of every 3 Tennesseans has a mental health issue. There's 99 of us in here, so that means 33 of y'all have mental health issues.
Count yourself.
And that's a real number. That's a fact. And so I encourage legislation and appreciate you, Speaker, for bringing this legislation. But there's so much more that we can do. And I hope that we don't get in here and play the game like we've done all of this greatness for mental health. We haven't done anything great for mental health. This helps. It helps the providers to get paid what they should have been getting paid from 2014. We hadn't had an increase for the providers since 2014. If I was a provider, I wouldn't even want to give service for mental health to go backwards and go broke trying to do it. But that's what we've been doing to them. Thank God they have a heart. But we got to do better for our people, for our citizens here in this state. Again, Representative Williams, the Speaker, I appreciate this legislation, but I hope that we can go further and make sure that everyone has true access to some mental health resources and possibly insurance and other things so that we can get that 1/3, 1 out of every 3 number lower than what it is. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Parkinson. I agree with you. This is a good first step. We're calling a special session. As you know, we spent the majority of the money in the spring with the Speaker's leadership, House and Finance Committee, those mental health, and insurance. What we've been able to do is to do a first step there. In addition to this bill, we are providing more safety net funding. We are providing $50 million in mental health, which we didn't have before. So I really appreciate your comments. I look forward to your support of the bill and look forward to working with you next year on some additional things in order to try to get more people.
Representative Shaw.
Oh, of course.
Question called 8-10, we're voting. All those in favor of House Bill 32 as amended, vote aye. Vote against, vote no. Vote is 8 members to vote.
Ayes 83, 4 nays, 3 present, none voting.
House Bill 32, received by majority by clerk, passed on objection, let's research that.
House Bill 38, by Representative Dan and others, relevant to educational expenses for school second place.
Again, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We passed the House Bill 38 on third and final consideration.
Again, Ms. Bassett, on second, Mr. Clerk, call the first one.
House Education Administration Committee Amendment.
Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment rewrites the bill, so I move to adopt and refer to the sponsor for explanation.
Everybody knows adoption, everyone, on second, any discussion, amendments, seeing none, all those in favor, everyone say aye, aye, all those opposed say no. Ayes have it, unanimous. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Again, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This directs the Department of Education to establish and administer a school safety alert grant program. The purpose of this program is to provide grants to LEAs and public charter schools to establish school safety alert systems in public schools. The alert systems funded through this grant program must be approved by the Department of Education in consultation with the Department of Safety, and then in consultation with the Department of Safety is part of the amendment that Chairman White just mentioned. This establishes that a first alert system can be included as an approved expenditure under the current grant program. There remains a requirement that a first alert system must be in the district-wide school safety plan in order to qualify for the grant money of $20 million for public schools and $7 million for private schools. It also includes the $20 million from the federal match as well that was pulled down. It requires that the grant award be limited to $50,000 per eligible school in fiscal year. The Department of Education is required to prepare a report to the General Assembly on or before January 1st, 2025, and each subsequent year regarding the fund received and payments made by the fund. And that, Mr. Speaker, I will renew my motion.
Representative Cameron, this motion, any discussion on the bill? Mr. Dixon.
My question is, can you explain to me what the safety of the program will entail?
Again.
Explain your question again.
It says this particular bill is going to establish a school safety alert grant program. What is a school safety alert? What is the program? What does it entail?
All right, I'll give you a description of what a first alert system looks like in our public schools and private schools in this day and time. It gives immediate notification, instantly reaches first responders, one button activation, crisis alert badges can be triggered from any corner of the campus, can alert the entire campus in an instant. Audio visual notifications determines exact locations of alerts where they came from, enhances visitor management, digital mapping of a school, total campus coverage, desktop alerts to teachers the instant somebody hits that panic button, real-time visitor locating, and the instant this call goes out from, say, some of the systems, there's many systems that are out there to do this. The instant a call goes out, usually they're on a fob or a badge that a teacher or a faculty member has with them at all times. If it's a medical alert, there's a medical alert. In that particular situation, if it's an active shooter, it sends that alert out instantly to everybody in that school on their desktops, on their iPhones. It even sends messages directly to law enforcement. And it even has the capabilities, from what I understand, to locate the nearest police officer to that school the moment that panic button is hit and notifies him that you're the closest responder to the school. It allows that officer to pull up on their laptops and their squad car on their iPhone, see live coverage of inside that school, the hallways, the exterior of the school, allows communication back and forth, allows that officer to see exactly which room that panic button is hit, or pressed rather, and lets them know strategically how to approach that school that has an active shooter situation that is playing out. That is your grant program.
Another question, but I think it says in the actual regular bill, it says
eligible schools. What's it, fully ineligible?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That is part of the rulemaking process in the Department of Education, and part of this legislation, and Representative Wilson worked on, allows the Department of Safety to be part of that rulemaking where they were not before.
And what's the fiscal note on this one?
There is no fiscal note. This is part of the $40 million that we approved in April in that grant program.
Thank you.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we discussed, I think, in committee, I know I'm talking to the majority leader about, this feels good, but as we start to reimagine how we're dealing with these alternate forms of communication, that we get away from tying it into a fire alarm. A fire alarm should be for fires, and the response should be unique. So as you all are developing these plans, I know there's not enough money to put an alternate alert system, a different kind of form. Something in every public and private schools, at least maybe you can plant the seed to say, let's start thinking about if there is an active shooter, this is the alarm and this is the response. Because what we don't want is, in my mind, is a fire alarm followed by information. Because people should respond to fire in a certain and immediate kind of a way. So I just want you to, as this is going to roll out, hopefully going to roll out and support this, that you start the planning process now. If you're going to do something new, let's standardize it to where, whether it's Knoxville, Mountain City, Memphis, or wherever, the response will be the same. So just something you consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. These school safety alert systems will do just that. They identify the type of alert that is coming in, whether it's an active shooter, whether it's a medical emergency, whether it's a fire alarm. It identifies each and every one of those instances separately, and it works separately in different ways.
Speaker, thank you. Response yield.
Yes.
Mr. Representative, thank you for bringing the legislation. I have just maybe answer the question. Let's say in your neck of the woods, as an alarm goes out one school, and everybody at that school put on the word. What about, let's say it's an active shooter, what about the rest of the schools in that locale? Are they going to order from?
That Representative, I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming that it's going to be most critical for that school to get the notification right away, and then for law enforcement to make those determinations as they move forward.
I would think that that would be the case. However, I would think also why is it disputed? Because you never know what's in these offenders, what's in their mind, what's in their head, what they're trying to do. There may be some simultaneously concocted nonsense going on. And in all of our schools, it's all we talk about being on lockdown, being away, which gives us potential, a greater potential to protect all those schools. We don't really delve in, we don't know what's going to next. We have no idea. And the system may have the capability to find out and let it know offline. I just think it's something to consider because in that locality, just talk about 6 separate cities like consider Nashville. Those principals of other schools need to probably be a heads up on what's happening. So let them know that. Thank you for doing it.
And Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Speaker. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with this legislation, having an alert system in as many schools as possible. I'll elevate what Representative Dixie shared, which is making sure that there's an equitability factor, that it's based on need of the school districts and the schools that actually might need the resources if they're going to be able to afford the system, or if they cannot. because we're distributing money. Let's not let it go to places that can probably afford to do something of their own. But I am also dismayed that, again, we have over $100 million at this point going for preparation of the next mass shooting, for preparation of the next acts of terror to hit our schools and our teachers, and we haven't passed any resources to prevent the next mass shooting from happening by banning the weapons of war that we know are going to schoolhouses and in our communities. We got to do something to prevent these tragedies, because that is what we also have the power to do, not just spend money to prepare for the tragedies.
Further discussion? Any objections to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of House Bill 38 as amended, vote aye with no raise. Those opposed, vote no. As there you voted, is any change to the vote, please say aye. 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 Mr. Clerk.
Ayes 88, no nays, 2 present, on vote.
House Bill 38, MC, Mark 64, your guys vote passed, no objection, motion considered tabled.
House Bill 12, relative to firearm safety and restricted city ordinance.
White, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute for form to Senate Bill 85.
Chairman White, move to substitute for Senate Bill 85, by second, objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 85 for third and final consideration.
Chairman White, moves passage of Senate Bill 85 on third and final consideration, by second, Mr. Clerk, call first reading.
House Civil Justice Committee Amendment Number 1.
Chairman Parker, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Second is Senate Amendment move to call.
No objection, Mr. Clerk.
House Finance Ways and Means Committee Amendment Number 1 follows House Amendment 2.
Shirley Hayes, would you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt and refer to the sponsor for an explanation.
Shirley Hayes, with the adoption of the bill, second, any discussion? All those in favor of Amendment 2 say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
Mr. Speaker, House Amendment 3, by Representative Henry. Mr. Speaker, it was timely filed.
Henry, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Upon my research earlier this year about secure storage and looking at the data, noticed there was issues around TBIs, keeping the data is a little bit different in some instances from county law enforcement's reporting of the data. I was able to at least do some work with TBI in coordination with our Metro Police Department and get their data analysts together and rectify this. However, knowing that there are many other counties that are likely to experience the same thing, I appreciated the chairman from Sullivan County's comments about the TBI bill around studying mass murders last week, and how we're going to get this data right. So I'll be working with the County Police Association, Sheriff's Association, and the TBI in order to look at these data issues, and we have a bigger need for more funds, more data analysts. Bring that back this January. That Mr. Speaker, control.
No objection, withdrawn.
Mr. Speaker, no further business.
Chairman White, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, where this bill, the genesis of this bill came from administration during the summer and the budget leading up to the special session about dealing with safe storage of our firearms. It has four points in the bill. The first one being that the state will provide free firearm locks to all Tennessee residents at their request to the Department of Safety. Second item is that it creates a public safety announcement campaign between the Department of Safety and TBI and any other department they wish to bring in to make the citizens of Tennessee aware of the importance of gun storage safety. Item number 3 in the bill is that all handgun safety courses must also include safe storage instructions in the course. And then the final item is that all gun safes and firearm safety devices are under the taxes status in Tennessee, which I think was under Shirley Hazelwood at $1.6 billion is the budget to cover that. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I renew a motion.
Chairman White, makes a motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Henry, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Appreciate your fervor in this area that's so needed and support of these things, and know we need to be doing these things as well as so much more. Secure storage is ultimately about gun responsibility, and that's something that by and large is not happening in our our state right now. We are the #1, according to the latest FBI statistics, in thefts of vehicles. Shelby County, #1 per capita. Hamilton County, #2 per capita in the country. Davidson County, #14 per capita. Madison County, #15 per capita in the whole entire country. I had a constituent recently ask me why I care so much about secure storage, and I will tell you the same thing I told them. This issue isn't just good for public policy, it's personal to me. Nearly 29 years ago in Davidson County, there was the only other, up until March 27th, the only other school fatality gun violence. In a classroom of 7th graders that day, there was a student who brought his grandfather's gun to school and gave it to another student who was playing with it in class. A 12-year-old Terrence Murray was unfortunately very tragically shot and lost his life. Another 12-year-old in that class who had to throw away his clothes, throw away his backpack, that had blood from the sling blasted on it. That kid swore one day he would do something about it when he got a chance. That kid is talking to you right now. Secure storage is something we all need to take more seriously. And ultimately, there's nothing more hypocritical than all agreeing there's a problem and not willing to address the solution. There's a whole stack of green votes behind me. It addresses penalties, it addresses regulations, there are means to incentivize behavior. We were not able to do that with secure storage in this session. It was highly unfortunate. I hope you all agree and join me in viewing this as such a serious problem and one that we need to address come January.
Representative Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Chairman White, both leaders, and everyone else on this legislation. Chairman White and my district line up next to each other, and as it's already been stated, this is a very big problem where I live, and I believe that this will make my community safer and all of our community safer as a result of that. So just want to voice my strong support for the legislation, and again, thank you so much for all the work you've done on this to make my community safer. Thank you.
Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the sponsor, can you describe the enforcement provision within this bill that you're presenting? Say a parent needs their firearm out and a child takes it and uses it in the shooting as it happened in Oxford, Michigan. A teenager had guns lying around his house, and he took those guns. He went to his high school. He killed 4 other people. Would there be provision within this bill to hold the adults responsible for unsafety and securely storing their firearms?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And President Jones, in this particular bill, there is not. I agree with you that we as adults, responsible citizens, when we have something in our home, such as a firearm, that we do everything we can to make sure that it is stored safely. I don't know how many times we can say this: you have a gun, lock it up, but when it's not being, in your possession, and so, but no, this, what you're asking for actually fell outside the call of the special session. I have carried a safe storage firearm for 4 years, and I will continue to push that, but to answer your question specifically, not in this legislation, no.
Thank you. To the sponsor, would you then describe legislation without enforcement provisions? We can call that a law, or it's just an urgent resolution. If there's nothing within this law to enforce it, then it kind of seems a bit pointless. It's just a strong urging or a strong proposition. We hope, please, begging you, do the right thing. I don't think that we're lawmakers. We're not people who just to pass stuff that's empty. I'm very concerned with that. So there's no important provision. Since without an important provision, how would you still call this a law if we can't enforce it?
Well, one thing we are doing is that we as a state are putting forth money to provide the citizens of safe firearm locks. We're putting that in place. We are making it easy for people to purchase the firearm locks, so we are putting, funding towards that. And then we're asking our departments that I have responsibility on this to make sure that the public is very well aware. I guess you could almost, this off the top of my head, a number of years ago, we had people leaving their children in the back of cars in 100-degree weather and lock the doors. How do you get past that? So I understand where you're going with your questions. This is an attempt to do what we can do at this point in time. So we're moving forward with this good piece of legislation.
To the sponsor, you just give an example of something that is criminalized, that if a parent leaves their child back in the car, they'll be held accountable. So if we're going to correlate this to, let's be consistent. If a parent leaves a loaded firearm unsecurely stored, how will they be held accountable? That's my question.
Yes.
Thank you, Will. All I gotta say at this point, I've got what we're able to get right now. We're gonna keep working on that and keep pushing for it.
So what we have right now is an empty, ambiguous proposal. Pretty please. So here's firearm safety. It is insulting. I'm sorry, it's insulting to the families of Tennessee that we're not asking people. We're here, having each other on the back, saying good job. Thank you to the speaker for giving us what? Promise. Giving us something that is just symbolic victory. When the people of Tennessee, families of Tennessee deserve so much better. So I hope that we get to a point one day we pass laws in this chamber that protect kids and not guns, that are enforceable, that are measured, that are proportional to the crisis that we face, and not glorify House and Senate resolutions that have no important provision, that are meaningless, that are being given to us by the speaker. Thank you.
No comment.
Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just have a couple of questions about the legislation. For counties who have been issuing free gun laws, will now the state pay for those gun laws instead of the individual counties?
As this policy is put into place through the State Department of Safety and TDI, then they will make arrangements, I imagine, local communities. In Shelby County, we've been working on this also, where the county has been giving away free gun laws. And so I imagine there'll be coordination between the state and county.
Thank you. One more question. Now, one of the more successful aspects of the giveaway program in Shelby County is advertising. I mean, billboards and other types of advertising. Will this bill also allow for advertising for gun locks within individual counties?
Yes, sir, that's the Department of Safety and TDI. We've been working on putting together public safety announcements and working with local
Thompson.
Okay, thank you very much. It's again, it won't solve the problem, but it will certainly help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank our governor. I'd like to thank your leadership, Chairman White, Cochran, and William Lambert as well. We passed this bill as far as tax exemption on gun safes for 2 years in a row. We know it works. Talk to anyone that sells gun safes. Sales are way up for them. But once it expired in January, it was crickets. One thing I want folks to bring attention to, the young man that was murdered a couple years ago named Kyle York, young musician, killed by a stolen gun. 5 juveniles were charged, 2 were sentenced. Here's what I want folks to think about. You know what the fiscal impact is from that shooting? $1.5 million in taxpayers. $1.5 million. That gun would have been locked up. Maybe Kyle would be alive today. Not many people are telling Kyle's story. I don't see any signs with Kyle's name on it. I want to tell the story, but I also want to thank some folks in media who did tell the story a few years ago, Phil Williams, Chris Davis. But here's another angle, members, that we need to consider, and that's investing in these young people, investing in student behavior, catching them when they're young. That mother, if you go back and study the issue, that mother was reaching out for help. And the system failed, folks. The system failed. Maybe if we invested a little bit, we wouldn't be incarcerating these two juveniles for the next 25 years and costing us $1.5 million. Some may not like this legislation. Some may not like it. I like it. It's one of the main issues of these folks that come up here. Critics are going to be critics. Haters are going to be haters. That's just the way they are. But you know what? We're moving forward. That officer that was shot 2 months ago was shot with a stolen gun. Those shootings on I-24 back in my district, I promise you, were used with stolen guns. This is a step in the right direction. Thank you, Governor Bill Lee, if you're watching. Thank you, Speaker. And thank you, our leadership, for moving forward. And let's don't wait on the Senate. They dropped the ball on this, as y'all know, back in the day. Thank you.
I would try to bring out some order.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Well, we hear all the time from the guy on the first floor, we're leading the nation and all kinds of things. And I've been scratching my head trying to figure out what he's talking about. And I'm glad my colleagues in Davidson County helped us figure out one thing we're leading the nation in: stolen guns out of cars. But several years ago, I sat in a subcommittee, and a representative from Shelby County came in there with a bill. I was kind of shocked by that bill. Very pleased with that bill, but it was a bill to make it a crime to leave your gun unattended in cars. Well, his colleagues about fell out of their seats, and the next week he came back all amended, and it was pretty much worthless. But I'm just wondering, Representative, did you like your bill then better, or do you like this?
Well, I'm carrying this one now, and this is what we have before us, and so I'm going to keep moving forward with this. But thank you for your comments.
Representative Holtzman. Yes. Representative Pearson.
Thank you, Speaker. I have a question to the sponsor.
Yes, sir.
Representative Pearson.
Thank you. In section 2 of your bill, it talks about having all department mandated trainings mention safe storage and things like that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
To own a gun in Tennessee, do you have to go through this training?
That is correct. They do not at this point.
Sorry, say that one more time. You do not have to go through this training to have a firearm in our state.
That is correct.
Here lies the trouble that I have with this legislation, Representative White. We're making recommendations, hoping that people will do something, while our communities continue to suffer from gun violence daily. We're here making a recommendation about safely storing firearms, which we know are being used and being stolen out of cars in Shelby County. And there is no way for this body or anybody to enforce this recommendation. Gun violence is the #1 killer of children in the state of Tennessee. We should be doing way more than recommending that people lock up their firearms.
I would ask you to refrain. This is warning.
Thank you, Speaker. To the folks in the gallery, thank you for witnessing and being here. Please keep your fist up and keep snapping, because being a witness to what is happening matters. And what is happening is passing a bill forward that we know won't reduce the problem that we were sent here to deal with, which is gun violence and public safety. There was a 9-year-old representative in my district this past summer who was killed accidentally by her younger brother because the parent had left the gun without a lock on it, laying down. The child was gone. Another child was traumatized. The family has been broken up and shattered in so many ways. And all that we can offer to grieving people is recommendations, and our recommendations. I'm not for putting more people in jail, but there's not even a fine associated with not safely storing a firearm. And so we can't pretend that we care about our children, and then we ensure the legislation that's written and moves forward here does not protect our children. There are no pats on the back or moral victories for passing legislation that actually isn't going to make our children safer. It's not enough to take these just baby steps and do things for cameras and stuff like that when we are dealing with an epidemic of gun violence in the state of Tennessee, where each of us serve and have a duty to do everything we can to make it safer. Suggestions? That's the best we can offer to Shelby County? Suggestions? That's the best we offer to grieving families and parents and loved ones? We're going to make suggestions for people to do things right with their firearms. We need to be doing everything that we can to prevent these tragedies. And this bill, as many others have, falls woefully short of doing anything to truly protect our children. I love the billboards and the mail going out and sending people firearms who request them. But this body should be using all of its power to prevent the funerals and the tragedies from happening in the first place.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Those who have spoken on this, I want you to look around the room. There's 99 of us. The beauty about constitutional government is that we work together to get things done in a majority body that we can get done. I've been here for 14 years, and I passed some pretty heavy legislation, or tried to pass some pretty heavy legislation. And the way I get anything done is I work with the other 98. I don't stand up and demand my way. I go around to each of these members and I say, this is what we need to I will stay on the bill. What we have before us today is a bill that helps. It is not everything I want, probably not everything everybody else wants, but it's where we are today. This came out of members meeting together over the summer with the administration saying, this is what we can accomplish. And we're going to accomplish something, and we'll keep on working. But we, as a body of 99, have to work together to get anything done for the 7 million citizens of Tennessee, from Mountain City to Memphis, from Lake County all the way down to the wall and everything. We have a large state with many various opinions, and we have to work together to represent all of them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, sponsor. I appreciate all the comments I've heard so far. I'll preface with I plan to vote for this because it's 3 blocks. It is a small, good step, but I do just want to mention as well, and try to say this a different way than everybody else. We've got a lot of really great groups here, Covenant, Moms Demand, Voices for Safer Tennessee. They only asked us for a couple things. They asked us for ERPO, and they asked us for safe storage, with some actual teeth to the legislation. It's really all they were asking for. And so I think, while we're talking about gun safes and safe storage, it's worth bringing that up. They were not asking for much. That's the minimum of what they were asking for. We haven't done that, but again, I appreciate the legislation. I'm going to vote for this because it's free locks. It's something, it's getting something out there. But I think it's important to remember what all these moms and these advocates really wanted. And we're not doing
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to Chairman White and my colleague from Shelby County. I'm not going to vote for this bill. This is more fluff. Don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. This is more fluff to say or make it seem like we're actually doing something. The counties, and y'all got me, please don't be laughing. The counties already give away free gun locks right. And for us to bring legislation with absolutely no teeth in it, with nothing that would make an adult safely store their weapon so that a child or their gang member does not break into the car and get it, and then shoot innocent people in our communities, is fluff. And I'm not voting for any fluff for District 98 that will mean absolutely nothing to them, to make it seem like we're doing something that we're not doing nothing in this session. It is unfortunate, Chairman, you had a bill with teeth in it that was held hostage and killed, just like the Democrats bill, just like our bills get in this body.
Representative Harbison, we're within the call on the bill before us. Thank you, sir. Representative Harbison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, but the chairman brought that up first. He brought that bill up first and sent it to us.
No, sir, he was asking a question that was in the bill, and he responded to the question about whether or not the enforcement was in the bill. He's answering questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, Chairman, the sad part about most of what we're doing here is that, and I understand you're making an effort, I get it, I promise you I get it. But we keep being held hostage, and we keep ending up with nothingness because we're trying to placate to everyone in this body, like you said. I would rather you take this bill off notice than to settle for nothingness. Stand your ground so that we can get a meaningful bill that will actually benefit citizens of our state. Some of the gun lock manufacturers might make a little money, but will it stop one death in Shelby County? Probably not. You don't even have to answer that. Because even the previous legislation that talked about storage, another safe storage bill that said lock them in the glove compartment. Look, we have to stop allowing fluff to go forward to these citizens to make it seem like we're doing something. Instead of making it seem like we're doing something, let's actually do something that will be beneficial to our citizens. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate our comments. I do review my motion.
Representative Travis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Call the previous question.
We're going to previous question. All those in favor vote aye. Those opposed vote no.
Ayes 70, 21 nays.
Serious question for voting. You're voting on Senate Bill 85. All those in favor of Senate Bill 85, please vote aye on the vote rate. Those opposed, vote no. Is there a member voting? Please register your vote. Mr. Clerk.
Ayes 77, 9 nays, 4 present only.
Senate Bill 85, I received my choosing before, hereby declare passed without objection. Motion to reconsider table.
House Bill 6, for children speaking relative to obligating mental health services throughout the state.
Mr. Speaker, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask that we hold House Bill 6 on the table.
Without objection, held on table. Sorry, held on desk.
House Bill 30, for Chairman Grills.
Chairman Grills, at your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move we roll this bill next vote count.
Without objection, hold next counter. Next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 26, for Chairman Zachary, relative to juveniles.
Chairman Zachary, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that request that we move House Bill 26 to the next bill.
Without objection, we move to the next counter. Next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 8, by Chairman Zachary, relative to duties required of mental health professionals.
Chairman Zachary, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We pass House Bill 8 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Zachary, this passes by executive, Mr. Clerk, by first reading.
House Health Committee, amendment number 1.
Chairman Terry, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move to adopt.
Hearing this adoption, amendment number 1, probably second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, amendment number 1, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
House Amendment 2, for Representative Pearson, Mr. Speaker, it is not time to rule.
Representative Pearson.
Thank you so much, Speaker, and to the members. This amendment is to just change the very small budgeting for a subdivision A3B1 in section 1 and substitute. And the concern here is the option to inform the department or inform law enforcement, but instead of just doing one or the other. I believe that it might be applicable for this body to have notification go to both. And so that's what this one does in an effort to make sure that the folks who are responsible for mental health services are always notified. They don't get ignored, and it just goes to law enforcement instead. And so that's the amendment as it is, and for the consideration of amendment number 2.
Heard the motion, and probably second, we're voting for consideration of amendment number 2. All those in favor of considering amendment number 2, vote aye with no rings. Those opposed, vote no. As there is no voting, we'll see
You won't even notice this little one word thing.
Mr. Clerk, take a vote.
Ayes 21, 68 nays.
In accordance with Rule 60, eligibility, the Secretary Clerk vote the motion to consider amendment number 2 fails.
Amendment 3, by Representative Pearson, Mr. Speaker, is not timely.
Mr. Pearson, you recognize.
Thank you, Speaker, and members. Very disappointed. One of the concerns that I had with this legislation is it doesn't actually direct either the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services or local law enforcement agency with jurisdiction over the municipality or county residents of the service recipient to do anything. And I believe instead of criminalizing people who have mental illness, which I hope is not the intention here, but to entirely prevent us from criminalizing people with mental illnesses, is to remove the local law enforcement agency with jurisdiction of the municipality or county residents of the service recipient out of this legislation, and let's make sure we do notify the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, which for this body, because there's no necessarily enforcement for either of them, it at least shows that as a body we are prioritizing mental health and substance abuse services rather than further incarcerating people. And so I would ask.
Yeah, 1 minute. I'm going to assume that you move to consideration of amendment number 3. You've heard the motion, is the proper second. We're voting for consideration of amendment number 3. All those in favor of considering amendment number 3, vote aye. No rings. Those
Ayes 21 to 69 nays.
In accordance with Rule 60B, having failed to receive the necessary two-thirds vote, the motion considered amendment number 3 fails.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Executive, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, the legislation you have before you is known as duty to warn. That's a revision to that particular statute, 33206. The language that you have in front of you is a result of meeting with covenant parents. As many of you have, I've met with covenant parents on 2 different occasions. The first time that this language and revision was brought to me by a covenant dad, who's an attorney who actually drafted this language. And after working with the committee, working with stakeholders across the state, the finished product is what you have in front of you. So currently, if you're not familiar with duty to warn, currently it's in 333206. It's a very short section code. It requires a mental health practitioner to report a threat against a clearly identified victim. And talking to law enforcement, that was described to me as if a person says, I'm going to Regal Theater to shoot a particular person in the next 2 weeks. That's a clearly identified victim. However, if a person says, I'm going to go to a theater and shoot up in the next 2 weeks, that is not a clearly identified victim and technically would not fall under this. So what we've done with this piece of legislation is we have given some discretion to our mental health providers who can use their reasonable skill, knowledge, and care ordinarily possessed in a situation like this. And if a threat is made to a group of people, not limited to, but including daycare, school, place of worship, or recipient's family, they then are required to report that. And in the previous code that's there now, there is no mention of where they're to report that threat now. So currently, the ambiguity of that section is there is nowhere to report that. And so what we've done in this section, after talking to numerous mental health professionals, we have given them 2 options. We have given them, obviously, the law enforcement option. If they, in their reasonable skill, knowledge, and care, ordinarily possessed in a situation like this, feel like it is an imminent threat or something that requires immediate law enforcement intervention, they will then engage law enforcement. But the important piece of this is the board. We have also given them the ability to give out 988 or engage their local mental health professional from East Tennessee. It would be eligible to get out. But members, this is important. According to the Sheriff's Association, in a survey they did in May, not one sheriff's office has been reported to in the last year related to duty to warn. And there's a very good reason for that. Mental health professionals who I have talked to, again, multiple entities that I've talked to, they do not want to report their patients into the law enforcement system. They do not want to put them in the criminal justice system. So in many cases, they simply don't report. So what we're saying in this legislation is let the mental health professionals who work with you then decide if they need to take that next step. So most residents in the state don't even know we have 988. You can call that number if you know of anyone that's in a mental health crisis. We're at a point now where if you see something, you need to say something. You don't have to call law enforcement. You can dial 988, so we give them that option here. Additionally, they can call their mental health professional within the community, and that practitioner can tell them what has been explained to them in that counseling session and turn it over to them, and they can take that next step. And additionally, and finally, Mr. Speaker, we have given that particular mental health practitioner civil and criminal immunity if a case were to arise, as long as they make that report. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I will move.
Thank you. Reduce the motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objections or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? House Bill B, as amended, vote aye. The bill reads as follows, vote no. Has everybody voted? Executive session.
Ayes 82, 5 nays, 1 present on vote.
House Bill 8 has received action before thereby clerk pass objection. Motion to consider table.
House Bill 5 by Representative Olson, relative to privacy.
Representative Olson, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 5 on third and final consideration.
Representative Olson moves passage. Properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, you may file.
Mr. Speaker, no one is filed.
Also, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, under current law, 49-50-803, find that K-12 schools across the state have the authority to adopt their own firearms policy. This bill does one thing. It simply expands the language of 49-50-803 from K through 12 to pre-K through 12. With that, Mr. Speaker, we would move to my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill came before Education Administration Committee, and I'm just thinking, Representative cited all these numbers, but citing numbers of the bill, it doesn't show laws that he knows. I just have one number for you, President. So that number is 9. That's all over the world we are still. School that had armed security, a school that people armed and did not stop that mass shooting. So you can try to hold the statistics you want. You can try and make this as abstract as you want. But what we hear about is about something very real, something very urgent, something that should trouble us to act in a way that actually will provide public safety and not simply panders to extremists, to gun lobby, or bring forth legislation being their representatives standing on the road. I think that it is harmful and horrible that we are proposing more guns in schools. When people ask us to remove guns from our schools, protect kids, and not guns. I got a letter to my office recently from a teacher at a private school, private preschool, and this teacher talked to me about how she keeps a club full of guns and suckers in her classroom now, because there's a mass shooting and she wants something to give to her little preschoolers so that they will be comforted and be silent if there's a mass shooting in the school. No teacher should have to make these preparations. No teacher should have to live in this terror for her children. No parent should have to live in this terror and trauma sending their children somewhere. So I don't, I'm talking to people in Williamson County. Some of them are in this gallery, some of them are in this Capitol, and they strongly oppose false arrests and so they're reprehensible, they're asinine, insulting, and they're not fitting.
Representative Jones, you are about ready to be pulled out of order for voting forward, so I'm going to ask you to pull back a little bit and do not come to the edge of a community reputation from your Representative Jones.
Mr. Speaker, I was talking about the policy, I wasn't talking about the
No, sir, you were. Representative Jones.
So, Mr. Speaker, can I say that these proposals, these false solutions are reprehensible? These false solutions are asinine. These false solutions are insulting to the people of this state, to the people of Williamson County. And so I hope that we can offer real solutions, stop trying to put more guns, and start a gun fight in our schools that will not protect our children. What is one little block against an AR-15?
Representative Jones, that's not the bill that's before you, sir. You're out of order. Representative Mitchell, you're recognized. Oh, sorry, Representative Bolso, you're recognized. Hang on, Representative Mitchell. Representative Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every member of this body has some obligation not to misrepresent facts. For 2 important reasons. One, the public should not be misled. And secondly, it destroys the member's credibility. Because if any member gets up and continually misrepresents facts to this body of the public, that member ultimately will not be believed about anything, no matter how many times
Cut his mic off. Yeah. Point of order.
If you're yelling from your chair, you'll be ruled out of order. Representative Bolso, you're recognized.
The statement was made, Mr. Speaker, that this bill was brought by the government. It's completely false. It's made up claim. Here's the facts. After the horrific shooting at Covenant on March 27th, I had a private Christian school in my district, District 16, come to me and ask me for help. Because that school was a pre-K through 12 school. And they've been told by the Department of Education that it could not adopt its own firearms policy. It could not provide an armed response in school in the event of an active shooter because they had pre-K. So this bill was filed because it makes perfect sense that a school that is pre-K through 12 should have the same right to defend its students as a private school that is K-12. And in fact, let's pause for a moment. Think about the role of humility in legislation. Who's better prepared and able to decide how to defend students? Those who are instructed with their arrogant and their parents, or a member of this body who stands up and makes outrageous statements?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sponsor, I'm trying to think, I think it was a representative from leadership before we got out of session, passed something that would allow resource officers at private schools. So wouldn't that take care of this situation instead of passing this legislation?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The short answer is no. There obviously is a shortage of school resource officers across the state, and not every school, public or private, who wants one can actually get one. What this bill allows is private schools, pre-K through 12, who want to have an armed response in school to protect students, to have that flexibility.
So what's going to be the training of this armed response that we're going to put in the schools?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It'll be the same as it is currently. Under current law, the requirements that an armed response must meet for private schools is set out in the statute. That plan of preparation and those requirements will remain in place, even if the language is expanded from K through 12 to pre-K through 12.
So this is just, the janitor, the vice principal, maybe the guidance counselor, they're going to be the one who grabs the gun and runs down the hall. What type of training? Who are the people who are going to provide the armed response in this private Christian school you're talking about?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All of that, Representative, is set out in 49-50-803. The key point being that those who are entrusted with the care of the students obviously have a solemn interest in seeing to their security. And so the idea that somebody who's just a janitor would be allowed to carry a weapon is something that is likely not to be implemented. This legislation allows each private school across the state, pre-K through 12, to adopt its own policy if in the view of the school, its leaders, and its parents, it can best protect its students by having an armed response in place in the event of an active shooter. This legislation would allow them to implement that. If, on the other hand, the school decided, for whatever reason, that it should continue to prohibit firearms on campus, it still has the authority to do that. The decision remains with the school, with its administrators, and with its parents.
I think it's been said many times, just add on to, well, this hasn't been said. I thought we weren't going to do anything, worthwhile during the special session, but this is going to take us backwards. We'll put more guns in schools, and we're not going to do anything beneficial about gun violence in our society. If guns are the answers, folks, this is the safest country on the planet, and we got more than anybody else. And it doesn't seem to be a solution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, members, I think this is a perfect opportunity to reflect on who should make a decision as to how best to defend students. Those whose children they belong to, parents, and the school administrators, or some representative sitting in this body. I suggest to you that the role of limited government is to allow schools who want to use an armed response to protect their schools. So those that choose for whatever reason not to provide an armed response, they're free to do that. This bill does not put one gun in any school anywhere across the state. It simply authorizes private schools, pre-K through 12, to develop their own policies regarding firearms. And if the judgment students are better defended with an armed response, they have to plus.
At the end of the day, we're a society of laws, and we have law enforcement. We don't need every vigilante in society running around with a gun, thinking they're the judge, jury, and executioner, and all they're going to do is put small children in the crossfire. And in a heavy fire situation, people are on the law enforcement is only 16% accurate in that firing. I wonder what the guidance counselor is going to be.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sponsor, I appreciate heard someone in your district where you're coming from. In my district, at least, as a fellow parent, I know our parents do not want more guns in schools. Period. End of story. We got too much on the backs of teachers already. We're asking so much of our teachers. We do not need more guns in our schools. More guns in schools do not make kids safer. Schools should be making their own firearm. I'm sorry, excuse me. Schools should be making their own firearm carry laws stricter, not looser. And this bill will endanger private school children. I stand in opposition to this, and I appreciate my colleagues who support me in opposition on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the previous question.
Next question, then call the objection. I see objection. We're on the board. All those in favor of previous questions, vote aye.
Don't pass on the responsibility. Something happens to do it.
I 7019 nays.
Previous question, we are voting. All those in favor of House Bill 5, vote aye. No reasons opposed. Is there a good vote? Let your own flag take place.
I 7218 nays.
House Bill 5, I received my signature, I hereby declare passed on objection, motion be taken.
House Bill 34, prohibiting grills and others relevant to scope.
Jim Grills, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage on HB 1734, third and final consideration.
Jim Grills, Ms. Mattson, Bob second, Mr. Clerk, call the first amendment.
House Criminal Justice Committee Bill 1.
Chairman Holden, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment makes a technical correction for the definition of the term stalking and move to adopt.
Chairman Holden moves adoption of amendment 1, Bob second, any discussion on amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, number 1 say aye, those opposed say no. The ayes have it, unanimous.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Jim Grills, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill continues to promote public safety by increasing the penalties for stalking and aggravated stalking. This bill also requires an independent professional mental health assessment of the defendant to determine their need for mental health treatment if the person is convicted of stalking, aggravated stalking, or especially aggravated stalking. The assessment indicates the need for mental health treatment, and the court shall include that in the sentence. As a condition of bail or a pretrial release, the defendant may also undergo an evaluation. For that, Mr. Speaker, I leave my motion.
Jim Grills makes his motion, any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, all those in favor? House Bill 34 is amended, vote aye. No reasons opposed. Is there a good vote? Seeing none, change
Ayes 84, 2 nays, 3 present on vote.
House Bill 34, received my majority, hereby declare passed on objection, motion is carried.
House Bill 23, which is speaking of law enforcement in schools.
Speaker, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 23 on third and final consideration.
Speaker, Ms. Mattson, Bob second, Mr. Clerk, call the first amendment.
House Education Administration Committee to their.
Mr. White, you recognize.
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment adds that the director of schools and principal must be notified if an assigned law enforcement officer is carrying a firearm. Move to adopt.
Chairman White moves adoption of the board by second discussion of amendment C nine, all in favor. Everyone say aye, those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Mr. Speaker, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill addresses an issue that is.
I'm sorry, hang on. We got one more minute. Mr. Clerk, next minute, please.
Amendment 2 for Representative Pearson, Mr. Speaker, was not timely.
Representative Pearson, you recognize.
Thank you, Speaker. Watching this in committee, I was deeply concerned about forcing schools to do something, and hear the comments of the representative who was just before, that school districts need to have the responsibility to care for their students because they know what's best, really resonated with me. And I hope to have everybody's support of this amendment because of that. It changes may assign to may request permission from the local board of education to assign, and it's further amended to delete if a law enforcement officer is assigned to a school in the amendatory language of subsection B, section 1, and substitutes if a local board of education approves a law enforcement agency's request to assign a law enforcement officer to a school. This directly associates with what you all just passed, which is making sure that the local board of education, the folks most proximate to the students, are the ones deciding what's happening in the school. And so with that, I move for the consideration of amendment number 2.
First motion, Ron, second, we're voting on consideration of amendment number 2. All those in favor of considering amendment 2, vote aye. Those opposed, no. Representative Landau. Margaret Parkinson. Mr. Clerk, take your vote.
Ayes 19, 69 nays.
In accordance with Rule 60B, having failed to receive the necessary two-thirds vote, the motion to consider amendment number 2 fails.
Mr. Speaker, no further.
Speaker, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill hopes to address an issue that came about after we passed the $140 million SRO bill that came out during the end of the session of this last week, our previous session. There was a problem that had arose because of a disagreement between a potential superintendent and law enforcement that was tying the hands of law enforcement. So it's a permissive bill at the local level, which just gives more flexibility. The head law enforcement agent, the jurisdiction over schools, now it's very brief description. The local board of education has not entered into a memorandum of understanding MOU with the law enforcement agency to assign the school resource officer in each school within the local board of education's control, and a law enforcement agency with jurisdiction may assign at least one law enforcement officer to serve the school resource officer at the school to increase the protection and safety of students and school personnel during regular school hours when the children are present or on the school's premises, as well as during school-sponsored events. This would allow a charter school that is under control of the LEA who wishes to have a school resource officer. If the MOU cannot be reached between the two, then the head law enforcement agency places in the charter schools.
Chairman Speaker, this motion, Representative Love, recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the sponsor, I have serious concerns with this piece of legislation. One major concern I have is, if I'm correct, in the legislation, it does not say that the law enforcement officer who is assigned is a school resource officer. It simply says that there will be a law enforcement officer. I'm correct also in letter C. It says that the LEA shall not impede on the duties of a law enforcement officer assigned to it. So the scenario, if the school superintendent has not entered into an MOU with law enforcement or SROs placed at the schools, this bill would then give the power of law enforcement, the chief law enforcement officer, to assign any law enforcement officer, not necessarily SRO to that school. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To answer your question, it gives the flexibility to the head law enforcement agency personnel to make the decision on what's best for the students, on what officer.
Thank you. So I want to make the statement for you, but the law says, legislation rather would say that law law enforcement also understand SRO. So I do have concerns. I know we discussed whether Davidson County had a memorandum of understanding, but it's my understanding we agree on that we do have one here. So we have deep concerns. That's why I kind of support this bill, because I think that superintendents and principals need to be able to at least determine what relationship they have with law enforcement at the schools, understand the intent. But I do have a deep concern because in a situation where you don't have trained SROs, if you assign a law enforcement officer, that may be problematic, I believe, because they don't have the training necessary to be an SRO, but may show as law enforcement also. And I won't be able to support the legislation because of that reason. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the sponsor, according to your understanding, which counties would be subject to this legislation?
Chairman Speaker.
All counties in the state of Tennessee.
To your understanding, this legislation pertains to school districts that don't have an MOU with the local law enforcement. Is that your county that's impacted by this, or can you give an example of which counties would be impacted by this legislation?
If you could ask the question again,
Will this bill respond to the current situation in your county, or is it applied to other counties? Is Murray County impacted by this legislation in terms of not having an MOU with the local law enforcement?
No, Murray County would not be affected because they have an MOU. All this legislation does is that if a school board and local law enforcement SROs in schools to provide protection for our students, it allows the head law enforcement agent who's sworn over to public safety to carry out his oath of office and make sure that those schools are protected. The law enforcement agent, and hopefully they can work together and come up with a solution to the problem. It'll also further that if a charter school who's under the control of the LEA and wishes to have an SRO or law enforcement there provided by the state, that allows them to petition the head law enforcement agent to go ahead and place them in their charter schools, even if the superintendent does not want to sign the MOU. That's your question.
Thank you, Speaker. Representative Sapicki, is it correct that in committee you stated to me, to some of the members of this body, that this legislation won't apply to Davidson County? Is that correct? Yes or no, sir?
The implementation of the bill at the time that was said, I was aware of only one district in the state of 147 that had not signed an MOU. Miraculously, and thankfully, shortly after that, the MOU was signed with Davidson County. So, congratulations, Davidson County.
There's a movie that I watched recently called Mean Girls, and they say she doesn't even go here. I just want to say that people who don't live here, you don't even live here. Let's let Nashville and Davidson County decide for ourselves how we over, and not for some outside ideologies and policies on our county. Davidson County has to hear our purpose in this body, but let's decide for our county, speak for our counties, and of others, supervisory on a county that's already been mistreated and maligned. My concern with this legislation is this, Representative Sapicki, is that SROs have not been shown to reduce instances of mass shootings. Instead, what we see are disparities in terms of exposure to students of color, the student disabilities. We see instances of students being trafficked into the criminal justice system. When what we need, what our schools need, Representative Sapicki, and I hope you can hear me because I fought for your county, and I hope that you can hear my county's voice. What our schools need are mental health professionals. We need funding for mental health. We need to pay our teachers better. We don't need more police in our school.
Representative Jones, you're off. You're out of order. Representative Pearson, you recognize. Oh, that's two. I'm sorry, we're on the board. That's the second time being out of order today. We're being off the bill. There's no point of order, it's not available, we're on the board. Is that right, Mr. Clerk? That's correct. Mr. Clerk, can you let the body know what they're voting on?
Mr. Speaker, if the member is called out of order for being on the bill the second time in any matter, the same legislative day, and it's the same by the House, the member shall not recognize and debate remarks on the House floor for the remainder of the same legislative day. A vote of aye would be to agree that the member was off the bill. voted no would allow the member to continue.
There's no point of order. Parliamentary inquiry. President Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Clerk, I just want to be clear on what you're saying we're voting on. We're voting, are you saying that we're voting to see if members thought that the member was off subject?
Mr. Martin.
Mr. Speaker, the members are voting on whether or not to sustain the ruling that the member was off the bill. So I voted aye, the meeting agreed they were off the bill, I voted no.
President Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Clerk, I'll wait.
President Parks.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, I would venture to say that probably 90% of the individuals in here wasn't listening to it, number one, but number two, how do we know where he was out of order, when he said that was out of order, which line was, how do we know so we know what we're voting? Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the representative was ruled out of order earlier for not being on the bill. A second time on the same legislative date, the representative was ruled out of order for not being on the bill. Or will say that the body is now voting.
Thank you for that, Mr. Clerk. So then, Mr. Clerk, can you tell me what he said, that I'm sure you heard it, that was ruled out of order? So I can know how to vote.
Mr. Speaker, I do not have a transcription of the proceedings.
President Parks said that the rule out of order is not available when you're under parliamentary inquiry. So parliamentary inquiry is to inquire about the rules, not asking Mr. Clerk what happened. But the rules that we voted on by the House states the process. And the second time you're ruled out of order, it's a vote of the body to determine if that individual was out of order. And if it is, then there's actions based on for that vote. President Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the clerk, if the bill subject matter that's before us has to do with SROs, their involvement in schools as it relates to MOU, and a member were to stand up and talk about how mental health funding was so important that was what we needed to do instead, would the clerk say that they were off the bill if that's the discussion instead of the bill subject matter, which was in regards to SROs?
Mr. Speaker, this body is about to determine whether those comments were commentary.
President Love.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and this is the clerk also. Just so we're clear, for the entire body, we're about to put on the board a vote to see if Representative Jones has violated one of our rules, and what would be the penalty, is that the correct term, or what would be the consequence if this body determines that he has violated the rules?
Mr. Clerk. Members shall not be recognized and remain for remarks on the House floor for the remainder of the same legislative session.
So I'm fairly clear about this, and so I'm asking, hoping that members hear what I'm asking. As we prepare to vote, this vote will be on whether another member of the body will allow to speak for the rest of this day. All right, is that correct?
Mr. Speaker, that's correct. It only applies to this legislative day for this offense.
Thank you.
President Powell.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the clerk. Is this member of the 52nd District going to be silenced now
during unfinished business and be able to be unrecognized?
Mr. Speaker, members shall not be recognized and make remarks on the House floor for the remainder of the same legislative day beginning today.
So, I know this member has delivered something in my office. He's delivered some letters at everyone's office. And again, this is what concerns me here. Is
President, how you under parliamentary inquiry, not a speech from the House floor, sir. So if you have a question for the clerk, that's a parliamentary inquiry. So that's where we're at. If you allow parliamentary inquiry, but not continue to make a speech for President Crowder.
so, just to understand, at any time, if a member is ruled out of order twice by the speaker, then that member is then silenced for the rest of the day, even if they have bills they were to bring to the floor or things they wanted to do during the rest of our proceedings. Is that correct?
Mr. Clerk, can you read the entire rule for the individuals that understand the entire rule? That was voted on and adopted by the House.
Mr. Speaker, if a member's remarks fail to strictly conform to the question under debate, any time remaining of such a member shall be subject to court. If the same member fails to strictly conform the member's remarks a second time on any matter on the same legislative day, the Speaker may call the member to order and if sustained by the House, the member shall not be recognized in debate or remarks on the House floor for the remainder of the same legislative day. If the same member fails to strictly conform the member's remarks a third time on any subsequent legislative day, the Speaker may call the member to order, and if sustained by the House, the member shall not be recognized in debate or remarks on the House floor for 3 legislative days beginning on the day on which the third offense is sustained. If the same member fails to strictly conform the member's remarks a fourth time on any subsequent legislative day, the Speaker may call the member to order, and if sustained by the House, the member shall not be recognized in debate or remarks on the House floor the remainder of the annual session beginning on the day on which the fourth offense is sustained. Nothing in this paragraph shall be construed to prohibit the offending member from voting on any measure before the House by roll call vote or vote.
So here's my issue with this. I heard the word debates or remarks. Debate or remarks applies to, in my interpretation, when someone is on a bill and they raise their hand to debate or give remarks. If somebody were to stand up and have a bill on the floor, even though they've been silenced, they should still be able to come up and say, well, and present their bill. If someone raises their hands and make a motion, that is not a debate or remarks. So I want to know how the clerk is taking this to interpret that this member can no longer make a motion or present legislation that he has been elected to give. That's an interpretation. I hear it, and I know you're objecting, but you just read the rules, and it talks about debate or remarks. It doesn't talk about making a motion or being in the well to give a bill.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know how a member can present a motion for a bill if they are not allowed to be recognized for debate or remarks.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the problem here is that you have the discretion to say what is and isn't out of order. And members was asking what was out of order. And it appeared to me, the little bit that I did hear, that the member was trying to make an analogy with respect to the bill. And so it made him appear to be out of order, but it was trying to make an analogy to say, if this, then that, based on the analogy. So I didn't see that as being out of order. Is that the portion of which you call out of order? I'm just not understanding what part of that was really ruled out of order.
He was ruled out of order for a second time, even after getting warnings of the state home topic. We are going to be putting this on the board, and every individual will have the ability to vote whether or not they think they were out of order or not out of order. That's where we're at. Oh, Leader Campbell.
That's what I was trying to get at. What is it? I don't know what is it that was out of order. That's the point I was trying to get. I don't think we have an understanding of what it was, and now we're about to vote on something. We're not here, but what was out of order? And you really have sole discretion to determine that it was out of order. Anyway, that's the point I was trying to get.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to make this quick comment. That's the very reason why I voted against these rules, because I understood the other day when we made them, that this whole house would have that opportunity. If we pass these rules, which they did pass, and that's the reason why I brought this up the other day to our distinguished leader. That is the reason I did not vote for them, because there's too many personalities in here to make a decision about any one member. Thank you.
Representative Pearson, what's your question?
Thank you. Clerk, is it correct that the speaker determines who is out of order, when, and what was out of order?
Mr. Clerk? Under this rule, yes. Representative Pearson?
Is it true that the speaker is the ultimate authority about who is out of order? People without this rule?
Mr. Speaker, I want to speak to the rule that we have, and ultimately the body gets determined. That's why it's put to a vote.
Before it's put to a vote, the speaker determines who is out of order, correct?
Not in all cases under our rules, but under this particular rule. Speaker.
Thank you. Clerk, a previous representative also was ruled out of order twice by the speaker for two comments. One against Representative Williams and the other against Representative Mitchell at the beginning and the end of his comments, and no vote was had. Clerk, why didn't we have a vote for Representative also?
Mr. Speaker, one was a warning. The rule says the speaker may rule someone out of order. The other one was being ruled out of order, so Representative also been ruled out of order based off the bill once.
Clerk, when the speaker made the comment, he said out of order. He did say this is a warning. So why did you just change it to a warning?
Mr. Speaker, it was my understanding at the time that it was just a warning because the member was allowed to continue. The second time he was called to order, it formed in its time.
Clerk, why didn't we have a vote after Representative Wilson was ruled out of order by the speaker according to the rules passed by this House?
Representative also gets off the bill again during this legislative day. He gets off topic or any other bill we have before us, any motion we have before us. The body will vote. That would be the second time.
My concern, clerk, is I heard you say that from your understanding, the speaker intended something. But what was clear was the speaker directly said out of order. He did this twice. Twice. The speaker said out of order, he did it, and I've seen the speaker actually issue warnings before. Even to the member that were voting to censure him. I've seen that happen, and I've seen the speaker issue a warning. He did not issue a warning. He ruled Representative Wilson out of order twice. Why didn't you, as the clerk, who has responsibility for us following these rules to a T as you are doing now, ensure that we had a vote then? Why is Representative Wilson, why did he get on the board, but now Representative Jones gets on the board on this order?
Mr. Clerk. Mr. Speaker, as stated before, Representative Bolso was able to continue. He did not forfeit this time. It was my understanding that that was a warning.
Representative Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a non-debatable issue. It seems to me that we're entertaining debate. Therefore, I call for the order of the day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Clark. Mr. Speaker, orders of the day have been called for remotely. Mr. Clark. Aye, 70, 20 names.
Department of Safety, please clear the balcony.
You shame America! You bring shame to Tennessee! You do! Shut silence in your opponents! That's cowardice! Coward!
Are you with the press? Yes, sir. Oh, okay, no, I'm independent, fine. Yeah. Okay, you're fine. Okay, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I can't hear a thing.
What this bill does is called the SRO Expansion Act. What this does is it rural areas that are having appropriate deputies to serve as SROs. This gives them the freedom to hire retired police officers and honorably discharge veterans with the proper training, evaluation, and permission of local law enforcement to carry guns in the schools. They would be employees of the LEA. It is strictly permissive.
Representative Gann. Any further discussion? Seeing none, any objections to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor, House Bill 763 has been from out with our reading, so as President House. Is there any vote? Is there any wish to change the vote? Hear that? All here.
I said no nays.
All those in favor, House Bill 763, having received partial majority, I vote to pass that objection, let's receive.
House Bill 35, Representative Gillespie, Section numbers, relative to civil
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll move to move this next bill.
House Bill 73, Speaker Section and others, relative to general matters.
President Vaughn, you recognize. President Vaughn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passing House Bill 773, third by consideration.
President Vaughn, Ms. Passmore, second, Mr. Clerk, call the first reading.
House Criminal Justice Committee Minutes.
Chairman Holt, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move to withdraw.
Without objection, withdrawn. Mr. Clerk.
House Finance Ways and Means Committee Minute number 1 files House Member 2.
Shirley Hazelwood, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt and refer to the sponsor for an explanation.
Shirley Hazelwood, adoption number 2, for second, any special amendments, seeing none, all those in favor, number 2, say aye. All those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, next year, Mr. Clerk.
House Finance Ways and Means Committee Minute number 2 files House Member 3.
Shirley Hazelwood, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt and again refer to the sponsor for an explanation.
Shirley Hazelwood, adoption number 2, for second, any special amendments, seeing none, all those in favor, number 3, say aye. All those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, adopted, next year, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We recess.
I 64 nays. Item 6, Senate Bill 6, which we report on. We've already substituted the part of the
Chairman Parker,
Thank you, Speaker. Members, Mr. Rehash, we debated this bill earlier. What it does is allows the courts to issue their dispositions to the out within 3 business days. So we might vote for them, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Parker, any discussion, any discussion, no, President Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to approve this question.
Oh, we have the amendment. Are you on? President Parker.
Yes, sir. I'll withdraw.
House Member 2,
recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is considered 3 days to send to our signing passage.
The next one is passage, amendment number 2. Proper motion, proper second. All those in favor, number 2, say aye. All those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, unanimous.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chairman Parker, recognize. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objections to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 86, as amended, vote aye with no reasons, as opposed to no. As every member casts a vote, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
ICC, no names, three present, none voting.
Senate Bill 86, Chairman City Constitution, before everybody, pass no objection to the Secretary.
House Joint Resolution 15, Lord, up here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Thank you for remaining in the chamber. Obviously, every single Democrat appears to have left the chamber. There are issues still in the county today, including the national, that they have left behind since abandoning their work and their post. I can't explain to you why they left. With that, I make a motion with this resolution to lay it on the table.
Motion made second, without objection, for table. Next bill, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the House has a regular calendar dated Monday, August 28th, composed of those Senate joint resolutions that are left off the regular calendar, or consent calendar.
So Williams, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Recognize another body doesn't want to do a lot of work, so I say we lay these on the table. I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk, please hold on to this.
Next time, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, that concludes the regular calendar.
Next word, Mr. Clerk.
Unfinished business.
Unfinished business. Oh, yes. Representative Cochran, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to withdraw House Bill 16 from the committee in the House.
You've heard the motion. Any objections? No objections, so ordered. Repeat your language. Your language, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the House Bill 81, heard from Justice Subcommittee this week.
Heard the motion. Any objections? No objections, so ordered. Next word, Mr. Clerk.
Announcements.
Next word, Mr. Clerk.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House stand in recess until 11 a.m. on Tuesday, August 29, 2023.
Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Without objection, House stands recess till 9 a.m. on Tuesday, August 29.